The events take place in the United States in the 1950s. Jack and Alice live in a perfect neighborhood, enjoying a luxurious life in a stylish home. They always have a juicy steak on the dining table, and Jack drives around in an expensive car, always dressed in a perfect suit. They deny themselves nothing. Of course, other married couples also live in this neighborhood, and Jack and Alice maintain friendly relations with them. Every day, Jack and the other men all leave for work in the desert, while Alice and the other loving wives run onto the lawn to wave them off. They take care of the household and maintain the idol in their homes. They clean, tidy up, cook delicious meals, and wait for their husbands to return. The women know almost nothing about their husband's work. The only thing they are aware of is the existence of a secret project called Victory. However, they do not know what their husbands are actually doing. This doesn't bother anyone, as there are two rules in this society. Don't ask unnecessary questions and don't enter the desert surrounding the town. It is believed that leaving the safe area will put their lives in great danger. In their free time, Alice's friends, Betty and Peggy, attend ballet classes and shop at prestigious stores. They used to be friends with another housewife, but due to her mental issues, their communication became minimal. It turned out that she took her son into the desert, deliberately putting his life in danger. As a result, the boy died. Margaret is sure that this was her punishment for curiosity. After that, she was simply crossed off the friends list, and no one tried to support her. One day, all the residents of the neighborhood gathered for a party organized by Frank and his wife Sheila. Frank is the most influential person in this community, and all the men work for him. The guests are enjoying the celebration, but soon Margaret appears and utters a strange phrase. "We don't belong here." Most ignore her words, but Alice is alarmed. She then notices Margaret's husband leading her into a distant room and trying to give her some medicine. Alice is confused and tries to discuss what she saw with Jack, but he doesn't give her a chance to speak. When Alice was preparing dinner, she noticed that the chicken eggs were empty inside. Not believing her eyes, she decided to calm down and went to the city. She took a few rounds around the city on a tram. Soon, Alice saw a plane crash in the high mountains. Despite the strict ban on going there, she decided to go to the crash site as the pilot might need help. Upon reaching the top of the mountain, she discovered a dome-shaped building. Alice tried calling for help and, touching the window, began to see hallucinations. She didn't understand what was happening and lost consciousness a moment later. When she woke up, Alice found herself at home and heard Jack doing something in the kitchen. She was surprised, as her husband never came home so early, and she didn't remember how she ended up back home. Alice asked Jack what he had seen when he came home, but he gave no answers to her questions. Jack said she was already home, and he dismissed her stories about the plane as fiction. Gradually, Alice's life turned into a nightmare. Hallucinations and paranoid thoughts consumed her. Sometimes the walls in the house pressed in on her, and a neighbor on the phone said they were all being deceived. Soon, during a ballet class, she saw something strange in the mirror's reflection. Margaret's death. She decided to talk to Margaret and went to her home, but found that Margaret, standing on the roof. Suddenly, people in red uniforms appeared and took Alice away from Margaret's body. Waiting for her husband to return from work, Alice decided to talk to him, share her suspicions and fears. However, Jack didn't believe her words. He convinced her that everything she was describing was a result of shock. According to him, Margaret was just cleaning the windows and accidentally slit. Dr. Collins, who was Frank's partner, confirmed Jack's version and prescribed Alice a sedative. In the meantime, Alice noticed a document in the doctor's bag labeled "security threat." Determined to find out the truth, she stealthily stole it. However, despite her efforts, she couldn't read the notes or get closer to the truth. Alice was confused. Was she really going insane? She didn't know the exact answer, but decided to find out the truth at all costs. The next day, all the town's residents gathered for a victory celebration party. At some point, Alice realized she could no longer stay among these people and asked Jack to go home. But he didn't listen to her, as it was extremely important for him that Frank had appointed him as his partner. Unable to hold back her emotions any longer, Alice went to the ladies' room. Her friend Betty followed her there. She noticed that something was bothering Alice and tried to find out what was wrong. Unable to hold it in, Alice told her all her worries and suspicions. But Betty didn't believe her. She suggested Alice throw all these thoughts out of her head and return to the other guests to celebrate Jack's promotion. A few days later, Alice and Jack invited their neighbors over. Besides Betty, they also invited Frank and his wife. While Jack was engaged in social conversation with friends, Frank approached Alice in the kitchen. He knew about her conversation with Betty and hinted that her suspicions were correct, but added that she still wouldn't be able to figure everything out. Shocked by Frank's bluntness, Alice decided to expose him right at the dinner table. It turned out that most of the couples in the town had surprisingly similar stories of how they met. They honeymooned in the same places and were even born in the same cities. Alice tried to open everyone's eyes to the truth, but no one believed her. They considered her crazy, just like Margaret. When the guests had left, Alice once again tried to talk to Jack. She begged him for just one thing: to leave this place. To her surprise, Jack agreed, and she went to pack their essentials. However, when they got in the car, it became clear he had no intention of leaving. Jack betrayed her, allowing the men in red suits to take his wife away. Drive. Collins and his colleagues subjected Alice to electroshock therapy. In between the painful procedures, she saw glimpses of her past life, which turned out to be her true reality. It turned out that in reality, Alice was an experienced surgeon, working around the clock to make ends meet since Jack was unemployed. At some point, Alice returned to Jack but couldn't remember recent events, although the hallucinations continued to haunt her. When everyone around thought her condition had improved, Alice suddenly remembered the truth. It turned out that the Victory World was a simulation created by Frank, and Jack knew about it from the beginning. Moreover, he had forced her to become part of this fictional world against her will. When Jack realized Alice had remembered everything, he tried to restrain her. He swore he did it for their benefit, to give them a chance to live an ideal life. Alice was horrified and didn't know what to do. Jack explained the terms of participation in this community. Husbands took responsibility for their wives, deliberately making them enter the simulation. The people in this world weren't real. Their physical bodies were in a state of coma under the influence of unusual lenses. Alice realized that her life was a lie, and her consciousness was trapped. She wants to return to a normal life, but Jack doesn't let her go, holding her tightly in his arms. To free herself, Alice grabs a glass and strikes him. Jack falls dead to the floor. Meanwhile, Frank is informed of what happened, and he sends his men after Alice. The girl has almost no time left, as the alarm has already sounded in the streets. Betty runs into the house and begs Alice to flee. It turns out that her friend knows about the simulation and has consciously chosen this life because here she has children whom she lost in reality. Betty tries to explain that Jack died, not only in this world but also in the real one, and now no one will be able to disconnect her from the simulation. Alice needs to get out of this place immediately. Stepping outside in her blood-stained dress, she notices that the other husbands have started to panic, and the other women are beginning to suspect everything. Meanwhile, while Frank is on the phone, Sheila decides to act. She realizes that the only way to regain control of her mind, and Sheila sees no other way out. Alice understands that to return to reality, she needs to reach the top of the mountain, to that very building. She gets into Jack's car and tries to escape. A chase immediately ensues as they don't want her to return to the real world and lose her forever. The heroine manages to reach the top of the mountain. However, before taking the final step, she sees Jack. He begs her to stay, but Alice no longer wants to live in a world of illusions. She touches the window, thus exiting the simulation and returning to reality. That's where the movie ends. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment below to let us know what you thought of the film.